So this is the state of the Blunion. Basically, we are just going to talk through some organizational changes to Bluebonnet and team structures and some of our plans. The purpose of these calls is to update all of our organization on our developments to increase transparency and communication throughout the organization, to ask questions and gather input, and basically to create an opportunity for everybody to be involved in this nonprofit organization. It is a place for us to debate how to spell Blunion. Please vote in the poll that was posted in the Bluebonnet Thoughts channel. We are really torn up about that. So quick update on the organization. We currently have 84 active fellows. Yep, so that's nationwide. It's across high school, college, professionals.
Yeah, so in addition to our active fellows currently, in the alumni and mentor group, we have about 57 fellows, and we have another 28 who are in the onboarding pipeline. So that brings us up to 169 total across the organization, which is awesome, and we're growing at a breakneck rate.
We also have 18 current campaigns, and that's in Florida, Indiana, Massachusetts, Maine, New York, Ohio, and Texas. So when it comes to that quick rate of fellows joining the organization, we're getting about 1 application a day. And then in the past week or 2, we've been getting about 2 applications a day. And what we're seeing is that current fellows are recruiting other new fellows. So we're trying a new initiative where if you want to join Bluebonnet, you can be assigned with a team of other fellows that we already have in the network, or you can actually recruit other members to join your team as well, whether it be friends or classmates or siblings, anybody who you want to be involved in Bluebonnet. We are getting a lot of people from Brown, Rice, and Stanford. And then in terms of campaigns, we are pursuing a partnership with the Montana Democratic Party that we're really excited about. And then we're having some fellows help with campaign recruitment in North Carolina. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And then lastly, to quickly address COVID-19, first, we hope that you guys are all doing well and that your families are healthy and safe, and that everybody is home and adjusting to this time okay. We're seeing a big impact on our campaigns and how they react to COVID-19 in terms of resources that they can share with their district, how they can reach more of their members. And the fellows on those teams have been just a driving force on those initiatives altogether. So we're really thankful for that. We also have a Slack channel that's been devoted to COVID-19. So if you are not a member of that Slack channel, it is open and you are welcome to join it. On structural changes. So we've talked to a couple of the teams about this. When we set up Bluebonnet, we wanted to create accountability in the best way possible. And at the time, we definitely thought that that was going to be, you know, one team lead and then the rest of the team kind of working with that team lead. But what we've seen is actually the most successful teams are the ones that spread out responsibility and spread out leadership so that it's a full team effort instead of all of that responsibility falling on one person. So what we've done is talk to some of the different teams and identified several key responsibilities that need to be filled on the team. And these can be multiple, can be held by one person, they can be shared, they can be transferred. But the most important thing is for them to be continually discussed. So for example, there's agenda setting, there's scheduling, note-taking and point of contact on campaign emails, code documentation, and those are just a few. Yeah. We are trying to find that perfect recipe as an organization about where we spend our time. And we've had no trouble in boosting that campaign or that fellow recruitment. Definitely campaign recruitment takes more time, but we think that the overall purpose of our organization should be to support and recruit and train fellows. So what we want to do is basically focus 80% of our time. This is Paul, Emily, and me as employed members of Bluebonnet, focus 80% of our time on supporting fellows, and then about 20% of our time on recruiting campaigns. And we could definitely use you guys' help with the campaigns as well. we want to provide fellows with more ways to contribute and be involved. We will actually send out a feedback form after this call, and you guys are welcome to add to that. You're welcome to put forward ideas in the project ideas channel or in the Bluebonnet Thoughts channel or anywhere else in the Slack. And then, like I mentioned before, please be a part of growing this network, both for the fellows and for the campaign. So I mentioned that we're working on recruiting North Carolina State Ledge races. This is kind of going to be a fellow-led campaign recruitment effort. And we would like for more people to be a part of that. Sorry, trying to admit more members. And then if you want to recruit other people to join as fellows as well.
Another step, and actually before I jump into the slide, I want to say you're probably noticing we're moving pretty efficiently through some of these slides. That's hopefully so that we can give ourselves some time at the end to squeeze in a few questions before the 40-minute limit of the free Zoom version kicks in. So on this slide, we're just noting that the Slack, we're really trying to build it into a better place and a better tool for collaboration, problem sharing, question asking, idea sharing, etc. So as you've noticed, we've created more Slack channels for different topics. We've created a few help channels on van, mapping, and census and demographic data. We've created a channel for project ideas and for Bluebonnet Thoughts to share ideas for larger changes about how we can do things in Bluebonnet. And the goal, and this connects in with a lot of these other initiatives we're doing right now, the goal is to kind of bring in the volunteer power that we have and capitalize on that a little bit more. Because if we're reinventing the wheel every time we're working with a campaign and not communicating, then that's no good. So in general, we want to make the Slack a more collaborative place. And some of these new channels that you're seeing, I think, is our first attempt to kind of go in that direction.
As Paul and Becca have probably emphasized a lot of the power of Bluebonnet comes from you, the volunteers. And some ways we want to empower like different team members and fellows is through projects. And given that everyone has all these different sets of skills, you all could contribute in different ways. So here are some project ideas that have been thrown out that we've been brainstorming. One of them is a media tracker, and that one is essentially wanting to build out a dashboard to track different social media communities or news headlines in a particular district. And we also have automated district analysis, which Paul could also like grow on, but the essential description is that we want to calculate district basics and then introduce them to the candidates for them to get started. And then there's district comparison algorithm to compare similar districts, and then internal infrastructure, which is something that I've mainly worked on for data storage, deployments, code management, and documentation. So a lot of like GitLab stuff that I've been hammering teams about. And there are some teams that haven't gotten started on it. And if you're interested in learning more about GitLab, feel free to just like reach out to me. But Paul, you probably could add on for the other projects.
Yeah, just to add on, I think in general, I think it might be a positive thing for us to develop a culture where these kind of projects that could be helpful to many campaigns can be incubated within Bluebonnet, just from the help of people who want to work on those in addition to helping out campaigns. And then hopefully be employed on multiple campaigns across the board and be made an open source tool for progressive change in general. It would be really cool if we could take a step in that direction.
So now we'll move on to the portion of this that is looking ahead. What are some of the long-term goals for Bluebonnet? The first one is to become a 501c4 nonprofit. So currently we're a nonprofit corporation. We'd like to qualify for C4 status. That would help us with fundraising. It would make us tax exempt. And part of it might need to switch to becoming more issue-based rather than partisan. So right now when we define which candidates we work with, we just say Democrats. But it's a conversation that we'd like to have with everybody about why are we supporting Democrats? What are the issues behind the party? Who are the people that we really want to support here? So we would love to include more people in that conversation as we move forward, and we will update you all on that via Slack.
Yeah, another big thing that we want to achieve this year, I think this cycle, is what can, I don't know, vaguely be defined as complete scalability. Right now, there are certain things that we do and certain habits that we have as an organization that prevent us from being able to just expand as much as we want to. An example of that, one of many examples that could be given, is the check-ins that I do with teams. If you rely on one single staff member to be checking in with teams and helping them share resources, disseminate updates, et cetera, then you run into an upper limit in just how much I can fit into my schedule in terms of 15-minute calls. That obviously is not very scalable, having that ceiling there. And finding out a way and setting ourselves up to be able to expand indefinitely with our, with the model that we have is, I think, where we want to get to sooner rather than later. So what that looks like, I think, is relying on volunteers more, since that's the more scalable portion of the organization. Especially right now, funding may not expand proportionally with the organization. We may not be able to bring on more staff, but what we are bringing on is more volunteers, many of whom are going to be working with campaigns, and that's it. But many of whom may want to take a bigger role in developing the future of this organization and playing a part in some of the conversations and roles that take place. And so relying on volunteers to help us create a scalable accountability structure, scalable resource development system, scalable campaign recruitment and fellow recruitment systems is all going to be really important to us achieving the impact that we ultimately want to as an organization, in terms of the number of campaigns that we can affect and the kind of impact that we can have on progressive electoral politics.
And then our third goal looking ahead is transparency. So this Blunion call is part of that, but then also what are ways that we can, increase participation in the organization as a whole, and be more transparent about, why certain decisions are made, where we're heading, and, how we've grown as an organization up to this point.
I think it's a really healthy thing for any organization to be transparent. And I think it's something that we want to achieve as much as possible in Bluebonnet. And I think it goes hand in hand with what I was talking about earlier with allowing for more volunteer buy-in to the direction and development of this organization. Being open about what conversations the leadership team is happening right now and opening those conversations up to fellows and to the stakeholders in this organization, I think it's going to be healthier to have more and varied voices in those conversations and helping to guide this organization. So this call is like the first step, right? Towards kind of achieving that dream of being a transparent organization, just telling you what's going on. But there's probably more that we could be doing. And I think in general, we welcome ideas, not on this, but on the other topics discussed as well.
Any questions or comments? And then I'll share these slides with everybody really quickly, but these are all of our campaigns right now. So just a quick little run through.
Actually, I just put a link for the slides in the chat, so feel free to open them up and look through.
Oh, great. Thank you. Questions, comments?
I have a thought, and that's just, I really like the idea of relying on volunteers more in general, because I just feel, bad every time I Slack any of you all to be like, hey, Becca or Paul, answer one of my questions again. And so I think that's really helpful. But also, I was thinking about when I was first brought on as a fellow, there was a while before there was a campaign for me to be on. And it kind of seems like when we have groups of people who don't yet have a campaign assignment, it could be like really cool to have them on like one of the incubator projects. Like they immediately get assigned to just like a project that's already in like being worked on that doesn't necessarily have like a set campaign structure. And that way they just get like experience like working in the like Bluebonnet infrastructure that Emily is like doing such a good job building. And that way it's just like they immediately start meeting people and understanding resources, and then jumping onto a campaign like whenever they're needed is like a pretty easy.
That is a great idea. Awesome.
Is it possible if the partnership that you had discussed you could tell us a little bit more about that?
With the Montana Democratic.
Yes.
So our Montana Democratic Party partnership. So we just had a call with them today. So first, I want to thank our Montana teams, both the Zach Brown for Gallatin County Commissioner team and Shane Morgo for Montana State Auditor teams. Yes, Lauren was on the call with us today with the Montana Democratic Party. So basically, their team, Zach Brown, the candidate, was so impressed by his Bluebonnet team and just thinks the world of them. And so he contacted the Montana Democratic Party and said, I think every Democratic candidate in Montana should have a Bluebonnet team, and so should the Democratic Party. So we got on a call with them and we said, we agree. Everybody should get to work with a Bluebonnet team. So what we are exploring right now is what exactly that looks like. Does it mean that we match every campaign in Montana with a Bluebonnet team? Does it mean that we put one Bluebonnet team with the state party, or do we do a combination of the two? So basically that partnership, in some way, shape, or form, we will be staffing hopefully more people to Montana. But yeah, does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you so much for letting us know.
Yeah, of course. We're really excited about it.
And if anybody has any connections with any other Democratic state parties, just let us know. We would love to talk with more people.
Other
Yeah,
questions?
I actually have a question. Kind of to that end, how are we like introducing Bluebonnet and the organization as a whole? Like, how do we make these connections?
Yeah, actually, you know what? This could be another really good thing for us to do a training on, or another call or some sort of workshop on it. But basically right now we have a channel called, it's an open channel called Candidate Search. We're building out an Airtable right now where we keep track of all the candidates that we want to reach out to. We assign, you self-select or volunteer to reach out. And then we're happy to send templates for, hi, I'm a Bluebonnet volunteer. This is what we do. This is what Bluebonnet is. We'd love to help out with your campaign. If you're interested, please reach out or respond to me or something along that line. We have flyers, we have infographics, we have all of that material. So if that's something that you're interested in joining, then jump into the hashtag candidate search channel and we'll get going from there.
But also,
Cool.
as per Nathan's request, in general, or like, and also to add like history and context to this, we started out just kind of finding campaigns organically through different networks. But as we grow, I think, like, again, to the sustainability point, we're going to need like a more systematic way of like finding, targeting campaigns. Working with state parties or like other umbrella groups is a great way to do that, which is why we love it if people have connections there. But for example, in North Carolina right now, we're looking at working with the state Senate races for several reasons. Like, North Carolina is a very important state. It's a swing state. There's a Senate race going on there this cycle. They've got a Republican legislature. And there's a lot of red to blue districts that we could get involved with. Oh, cool. In general, we can't, as an organization, give in-kind contributions to campaigns. and this goes back to a couple other points we were talking about. That's like against campaign finance laws for us to just do stuff for campaigns for free. So currently we're providing this service, us Bluebonnet, of bringing you guys on board, giving you a little bit of an orientation training, outfitting you with some support systems, and getting you in touch with these campaigns. That's the thing that we're doing for the campaigns, and we have to charge for it. We talked over it a lot, and what the number we landed on was like $100 per volunteer placed, mostly because it's a number that fairly represents, is like as low as we were comfortable going, like fairly represents the value of that. But this is part of a larger conversation, this entire thing about like how we approach campaigns and how we organize our relationship with campaigns. Because if volunteers take a bigger role in reaching out to campaigns on their own and finding those connections, that could potentially mean that we don't have to charge anymore, which would be splendid, obviously. So this is all, I guess, part of a larger conversation, but that's a little bit more context around how we work with campaigns.
I think that I love this organization. I think it's so great. And I think that, I don't really have bandwidth to go out and I see all of these things that you all want help doing, like website stuff and logo stuff and like candidate search stuff and all of these different things that I totally know need to happen. And I also just don't have the bandwidth in my life to go too much farther outside of the 5 to 7 I'm doing on my campaign. And so I think I almost wonder if kind of signing up for a shift to be on a campaign, you could sign up on a shift of I'm gonna be this type of fellow. Maybe I'm on a campaign and that's the type of fellow I am, or maybe I'm building internal infrastructure and that's the kind of fellow I am, or we could have different roles as fellows, and that's just something we could check boxes on future applications of these are the types of roles that I'm potentially interested in at this moment. And so then a fellow gets onboarded and just immediately slotted into one of the things that they said they were interested in, and that way they can spend the 5 to 7 hours being useful, even if it's not on a campaign. They have a shift that they sign up for a month or two at least of knocking out some good stuff.
That's a great idea.
That's a really interesting idea too, because in case anybody doesn't know, there's another organization that does something relatively similar to what we do called Tech for Campaigns. They operate out of the West Coast. They're a little bit different than us. What they do is get people to volunteer on campaigns who are really talented tech people from Silicon Valley, but they're more of a project-based volunteering. So campaigns submit project requests we need this thing built, or we need help on this media campaign, and then they'll kind of match them with their body of volunteers and say, hey, do you want to go work on this project? We have discussed this a few times, their model versus ours, and we think there's value to sort of being involved with the campaign as a volunteer for the campaign, and not just almost providing a service or building a product. But I think that's interesting, Lauren, because it strikes an interesting balance between being something that's relatively temporary and being able to move to different campaigns and try different stuff, but not being just the sort of project service-based model. That's why I like it.
And it can go along too with your suggestion before, and maybe it falls into different times, while you're not assigned to a team, you get to work on projects like that.
And maybe even someone maybe a first rotation is rarely a campaign. I don't know. I feel it would be fine if it was. And that's definitely something you can learn as you go. But I also think that it could be valuable to have people do an internal shift as they're training, right? And then once they've completed one shift, being able to super easily transition into just being on a campaign and feeling really confident in navigating Bluebonnet as an organization.
I do want to pipe in on this topic and say that one important sort of legal aspect about how we do what we do is that once you're paired with the campaign, you are volunteers for that campaign, legally. That's really important for like everything about this. So I'm not saying it's not possible, but it'd be something to keep in mind, like to make sure that we will be staying within the bounds of like you guys being volunteers for that campaign. If we're like moving you around, having you work on internal stuff in general, right? It's a lot simpler if you just say, you know, pair them with the campaign and go help that campaign. It's a lot easier to just say, okay, yes, they're volunteers for the campaign. That's just something we need to keep in mind with that topic.
Any final questions and comments or ideas?
We have infinite time, right? So we could go all night.
Well, so just to follow up on that last one, are people allowed to be volunteers through Bluebonnet, or is the type of organization not allowed to have volunteers, like to go along with the conversation we were just having?
Yes, we can have volunteers.
So yes, we can have volunteers. The distinction is that we cannot like be providing like contractual work to these people because it would be theoretically worth a lot more than what we're charging. We're just charging them for like the placement of the volunteer, and from that point forward, then you guys are volunteers. But if you're on like a shift style thing, it might be, and I don't know, I'm not a legal expert, but it's something to keep in mind.
In terms of volunteers for Bluebonnet too, though, so if you guys see on our website, like the leadership team is the 3 staff members, but then we also have 3 of the original co-founders all volunteer their time. So that's Ben, Nathan, and Danielle. So yeah, we could definitely have more volunteers. And actually what we're trying to do as well is build out different like groups or councils, or this is kind of one of the ideas that we've been talking about. So maybe we have a council that advises on how to reach out to campaigns, or a group that helps out in another way. So that could be a way that people could volunteer for Bluebonnet too. So I guess we will wrap up our call. Thank you to everybody who joined today. Yeah, like we said before, this is our first step toward really moving toward a more transparent organization, and preparing for the November 2020 races and everything that's happening right now, finding a way to stay connected and keep each other in the loop on what's going on. I think this is a great first step. We still have many more to make, and we will send that feedback form as soon as this call concludes. And we'd love to hear from you guys, even just there's a rating for the call if you think that this was helpful or not helpful, if you learned, if you didn't. It's just a 1 to 5 rating. That would be really helpful information for us to have moving forward. And then the final thing that I want to add is just a big thank you to you all. You guys put in so much work and so much love and energy and passion to your campaigns and to your teams. And we see it week to week. And I mean, Paul and I feel like every time that we have one of our check-in calls, there's at least like 5 minutes gushing about one of the Bluebonnet teams doing something awesome.
Splurge about how awesome you guys are.
So it's such a privilege for us to get to work with you all. And we just want to help you and support you in any way that we can, both through Bluebonnet and in the greater outside world as well, if there are other things besides the time that we put into Bluebonnet. But yeah, so just keep in touch with us. And then final plug would be, if you haven't followed Bluebonnet's social media, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. Last night we had Bluebonnet trivia up on the Instagram, which was mostly flower facts. So yeah, get connected to us all on social media as well, especially during this time. But yeah, so thank you everyone. And with that, we will conclude the call. Thanks.
Thank you, Becca. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.